let's talk about the new kill team releases that have been announced at Adepticon and why Terron Devlan might not be the box we want, but maybe it's the box we need. There's quite a lot to discuss here. We've got the return of the Red Terror, the very first metal model that I bought, probably on release, like in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. We've also got an Amble coming back, which is like a fan favourite mini from both Necromunda and Blackstone Fortress. And we've also got a Zote coming. I've got a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the Zote mini because the only board game that I could ever get my wife to play with me was Blackstone Fortress. And I really wanted to buy all the expansions, and they just got underproduced, and I couldn't get hold of them, and I couldn't carry on playing the only game that I've ever got my wife to play with me. But anyway, you didn't come here for that. Let's talk about kill team news. First of all, let's get the only little bit of negativity out of the way, and that is related to Spectre Squad, which is the kill team that is shipping with the Terron Devlan box set. That is correct. We are only getting the one actual playable kill team for competitive play, and they feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity. Spectre Squad are a hardened sort of scout unit within the Cadian regiment, and that is kind of where the problem lies for me, I guess. Essentially, it's kind of just a bit of a missed opportunity. When you think of executing the role fantasy of an Imperial Guard scout unit, I feel like Cadians are probably last on the list. We could have had like a Dune box here. We could have had the return of the Talon Desert Raiders fighting the Red Terror on a desert planet. Come on, like Lawrence of Arabia shit, you know? When you think about it, this is literally a ready-made box set for a Catachan Devil hunting party. You know, you could have had like a literally fully Catachan themed box, but I'll give it something in terms of saving graces though. They are pretty much a ready-made Tanith unit. If you get the daggers out of your Tempestus Aquilon boxes that came at the start of the edition and you just whack them on the bayonets or on the on the webbing and stuff like that, you're literally there. No conversion needed. They've got the camo cloaks. They've got like cool collapsible stocks on the las guns. They've got like try again brag style gunners. Like put a commissar in there in place of the sergeant, and you're there, mate, with Gaunt's Ghosts. Another interesting tidbit around kickback on guard regiments is a bit of the drama that's been going on with the Armageddon release as well. So, you know, obviously we previewed Krieg painted up as Steel Legion, and it looks like Games Workshop have responded with a little bit of concept art and basically stated, you're going to get Steel Legion, they're on the way, don't worry. Maybe they knew, you know, with the combination of Cadian Scouts instead of like Catachans or Tanith, as well as Krieg Steel Legion, it was all going to be a bit too much for the guard players to take. I don't know. Either way, we needed a new guard team and kill team anyway, as the Kazakin are going to be going out of rotation next cycle, I believe. And obviously the Vet Guard kill team went out of rotation last cycle. It's probably the first time in a long time that it's been a really overt example of a kill team release propping up 40k releases. You know, we've got scout tanks, rapid response vehicles, stuff like that, with the wider 40k Imperial Guard releases. And it just felt like they needed their scouts to sit in the tanks, you know, so chuck them in a kill team box. Overall, though, I'm very happy with the kits, and I really kind of like the utilitarian look of them. They remind me of the Endor sort of rebel fighters from Star Wars, but I am curious to see how their rules will be handled with the new Kill Team 2024 design philosophy, because we don't really get like 40-man wide teams anymore. So how are we going to get like a standard guard squad in the era of like 5-man teams and stuff like that? I am very excited to see how they are executed. Moving on to what might be the most exciting part of the box for me, and that is the Red Terror. I am a nerd man myself. I have a Tyranid army shelved up there since I just play Kill Team now. Basically, I am working on my Raveners just there. I will get them over the finish line, hopefully, in the next couple of months. But we aren't talking about Raveners now. We're talking about the Ravener, the primogenitor of the Morlock bioform in the Tyranids sort of faction, and that is the Red Terror. Now, before I start gushing over how excited I am for this model and the continuation of really interesting elements of certain aesthetics in the Tyranid line, I just want to speak about the contents of Terron and Devlan. It looks like you're going to get a squad of Termagants and Rippers alongside the Red Terror himself to pad the box out, I'd imagine, and give it a little bit more perceived value for narrative play. Before I carry on though, let me tell you a story about young Monty. The original Red Terror was the first metal monster kit that I ever bought, and I could never get the fiddly metal parts to sort of fit together properly. I was young, I didn't know how to pin. I actually tried to use green stuff to hold it together, but it didn't read the instructions and it didn't mix the two components, and I just ended up with like a sticky pile of metal bits. So it's going to be a very cathartic experience for me to get hold of this kit and finally put the Red Terror together successfully after many years. So the mini itself carries over some of the really interesting design elements that were begun in the refresh of the Tyranid range. That is the kind of creepy, almost sort of primordial arthropodic sort of elements in the chitin and the shell and stuff like that. And I really dig that like geologically old, you know, ancient sort of primordial evolutionary path showing through in the Tyranid aesthetics. And the best sort of example of that, I think, is the head itself. I'm hoping that we see more sort of crustacean-like heads, like with those sort of recessed eyes and things. It just looks super cool. So yeah, anyway, hype for the Red Terror. At the start of the video, I did say this might not be the box we wanted, but is maybe the box we needed, and I do think that for a couple of reasons. First of all, for me personally, it is a very welcome stutter in what is frankly a blistering pace of releases in Kill Team. I think it's healthy in terms of consumerism for there to be a little break sometimes, you know. Second of all, this is kind of a reminder to the fans that this is a game about telling fucking stories, man. And they're really making that the focus of the box. Don't get me wrong, this season's been really good in terms of, you know, a slew of narrative additions and accoutrements throughout the various different boxes, but it's always been secondary to the competitive element of the box sets. I mean, we did get Ashes of Faith, which had a little bit of more of a narrative. It came with a narrative deck of cards, but they were supplementary to the 2 kill teams that you would play in like a competitive format. This, again, is definitely a narrative first box. It's nice to see that, and it's nice to get that sort of reminder about the soul of the game being storytelling, you know? One of the other big positives, though, from having a narratively focused box is actually beneficial for competitive play. Because we are only going to get one team released in the sort of competitive sandbox, and because that team doesn't look to be doing anything too mad or crazy, you know, we're not getting tunneling Raveners, we're not getting light speed priests with the Sanctifiers, we're not getting Space Marines with jetpacks, we're not getting absolutely crazy sort of role fantasies being introduced. And again, there's only one team. So because of the fact that we're only getting that one team, and because of the fact that we're heading towards the final season of the edition, you know, in the November time, we might actually be able to see some real impactful changes in terms of balance, with a little bit less to worry about in terms of reining in the new hotness. We might get, you know, a real sort of redress and a balance, and maybe some impactful changes before we hit that final season. Finally, I want to talk about the Nemesis dossier. Again, this seems like a very narrative-first product for Kill Team, and it is going to open the floodgates for flexibility in narrative play and the kinds of units that you can bring to the game. It seems like you're going to be able to bring elite units like battlesuits and dreadnoughts to support your Kill Team, as well as fight all kinds of different you know, boss battles and stuff like that. This really is going to please the narrative players, and they're a kind of silent element of the community, you know, because those sides of the game don't sort of carry much truck and don't really get talked about as widely as the competitive scene does online. They kind of get pushed to one side, but I think it's a really interesting way to explore the core engine of Kill Team, and using it to explore fighting like new and exotic enemies is definitely going to be good for both the direction of Kill Team as a game, but also possibly developmentally in the background, in terms of what other games might come to fruition using, this more modern activation system. I think it'll give Kill Teamers an avenue for doing things that Necromunda already does really well, but obviously without that really old, clunky rule system. One step closer to getting an official Inquisitor rule set, baby! My kingdom for an official revamped Inquisitor rule set with this kind of shit, you know what I mean? If you found any of this useful, like it if you like it, subscribe if you want to subscribe. See ya.